Ada, are you there? Could you please log on, Ada?
Press speak.
Please press speak, Ada, if you can hear me.
Can you?
There you go. Well, excellent. We can see you. If you say something, you can also. Right.
The technical problems always.
Excellent. Please go. Lady Olga, would you please introduce Ada?
With the greatest of pleasure, Ada. It was worth waiting a moment to get you on the screen. Now, I'm particularly delighted. You're the founder and business developer of Noble Victory Rock, and I'm sure you will tell us exactly what it does. Also, because you're breaking new ground, you're going to be talking about using effectuation to inspire transformation. Now, I'm not quite sure what effectuation is, but I know.
Oh dear. I think she has cut off, but I'll wait for her to come back because this happened before.
Right, I think I'm back online again. Quite clear there. But anyway, Ada, just to say that what you're introducing is a very new term.
All right, go ahead, Ada.
I think go ahead,
she's
Ada.
there. Okay.
Thank you for starting. So what I'm going to be presenting is a little bit a departure from the other speakers. I do not focus on GDPR professionally. I work with startups and small businesses and the entrepreneurship ecosystem, and I'll give a little blurb about Noble Victory Rock at the end. But I think where we are right now in society is actually a time where entrepreneurial thinking is very relevant. So we'll start with the next slide. Next slide. Just a reminder that the whole entire world has been brought to a standstill because of a cold, because of a virus that's transmitted through germs. So we are at a point where there's a lot of unpredictability. But if it wasn't coronavirus, next slide. We all are also at a time where there's a lot of transformation that needs to happen. We have digital disruption. GDPR is one, PSD2 in the financial section is going to radically change how our banking industry functions. We have the coronavirus, we have cybersecurity, we have artificial intelligence, machine learning, and deep learning. And in general, we're at a point of digital disruption. And for many people, that leads to the next slide. Fear, a lot of fear. And you can also see this as uncertainty. And even though right now many people are working through plans, there's still a lot of unknowns. Borders are starting to open, societies are starting to go back to work, but we don't know, will there be a second wave of this virus? Will there be more consequences? And even so, it's an opportunity to make change. Next slide, please. So when people are in crisis or in trouble, sometimes they think, WWJD, what would Jesus do? But I think we should look at, next slide. Relevant for us, what would an expert entrepreneur do? And this is what, next slide. This is effectuation. Next slide. So what is effectuation? Oh, and the reason why my face is on all these slides is that I didn't know we were going to have a webcam. And I was reading some research about engagement. So you get two versions of me to know who's speaking to you. Effectuation is a thinking framework and approach to solving problem solving that focuses on doing the doable to get sellable products and services established. It was developed by a professor at Darden School of Business, Dr. Sarah Sarasvati, and she did some really interesting research with 27 expert entrepreneurs. These were entrepreneurs that had grown businesses to an IPO, had been entrepreneurs for more than 15 years, and she looked at how do they think. So how do successful entrepreneurs think? And her conclusion was this effectuation concept. Next slide. I really like giving credit to where credit is due. So this is Dr. Sarah Sarasvati. There is a video here, but I don't think it works, so we won't click through it, but you can find it on YouTube, and she'll give an introduction to her thinking. But it's fascinating research, and from the entrepreneurs that I've talked to, successful and also, small business owners, it is the truest experience to how entrepreneurs work. They don't make big plans, and we'll get to that in just a minute. So next slide. So what is the difference? We have managerial thinking or causal thinking, and we have entrepreneurial thinking, which is effectual thinking. Managerial thinking, and we've actually heard a lot of, planning-oriented activities about transformation, and here's where you have a specific goal. You have a goal of, we need to implement this digital transformation, or we have to implement GDPR, and then you activate the means. You make a plan, you figure out what resources you need, and you follow the steps. This is really great when you have resources to do that, but most entrepreneurs don't have resources like that they can just engage, or they can't make a wish list of what they want. They instead have to take what they have and then figure out what they can do with it. So effectual thinking is kind of working the opposite way. It's looking at your given means and then imagining what you can do with that. Next slide. There are 5 principles in effectuation that kind of are the central point for how to think about making decisions to take action. So I will let you take a few moments to explore this slide, but I'll talk about it as you're looking at that. On the far right-hand side of this slide, you'll see what this is as an alternative to in terms of more managerial thinking. So bird in the hand is very much, what are your resources that you have right now? What are your skills that you have right now? What can you do right now with where you are? So you don't need to attract any new talent. You don't need to do anything. You have certain resources and skills with you. What can you do with what you have right now? So that is an alternative to preset goals or opportunities. It's more like, where are we right now in our experience? Affordable loss. This is what expert entrepreneurs do in terms of, would I do this if I will lose all of the funds? I'm not going to focus on this right now, but it is a consideration. Would you do this anyway if you're going to lose your investment? Lemonade, that is, how do you view the uncertainty? How do you view the surprises as opportunities? How do you turn lemons into lemonade? So how do you turn the coronavirus into a business opportunity? The patchwork quilt is my favorite in terms of effectuation and building businesses, especially startups and small businesses, which is, how do you build a network that will help you build your business? So how do you engage your network so they are invested in your success? And that is something that I've seen countless times as being the method of gaining traction with a new product or market, and then further having success. And then finally, piloting the plane is something that I think is extremely inherent in the entrepreneur experience, the entrepreneur as a person, and that is a confidence in yourself. and what you can do to respond to opportunities, respond to the situation that you're faced with, and basically control how you create things and how you interact based on what you're faced with. So it's really about self-confidence and the ability to juggle adversity, because there will be a lot. Next slide. So in terms of where to begin, if you want to start thinking in this effectual way, is the first, I'm going to only focus on 3, because I think these are 3 that are really good starting points for companies that have been in existence for a while, but are also, fundamentally questioning, how do I deal with an unknown future? So the first is the bird in the hand. Who are we? What we know, who we know. So who are we as a company? What turns us on? What do we like about the work we do? What will we not do because it goes against our values? And what do we know? What is core to our business? And who do we know? Who do we work with currently? Who do we want to work with? Who can help us overcome whatever challenges we're facing? And then with whatever situation you're in, create something new. Next slide. This is the pilot in the plane. What activities can you control? So what are you doing right now? What can you do right now? Who can help you right now? Who wants to help you right now? And do what you can do well so that you can do new things in the future. We are going to get into the iterative process of effectual thinking in just a minute, but it's very much about taking action and taking the actions that you can do right now. Next slide. I think I'm also speaking very quickly, but working with people. And as I mentioned, this is maybe my favorite means of effectual and effectuation, which is that you get you get buy-in early, and you get partnership early. So you get the partner to tell you what they want to do with your product or service. You get the partner to really drive the direction of the development. And in doing that, not only do you get, the first customers that are very, very influential in your business, but you also have a very dynamic network of stakeholders that want to see you be successful. So as I said, this predominantly is around starting new ventures and growing small businesses. But I think, understanding the role you play with your stakeholders, whether you're a small business or a big business, and reinforcing that. If you are a large company right now who is going to weather the storm without, massive layoffs like Airbnb right now with 1,900, 25% of their workforce being fired. If you're a company that's going to withstand that, how can you support your network of stakeholders that maybe are not having such an easy time? And in engaging your stakeholder network, you also want them to only be risking what they can afford to lose as well. So you want people invested in your success, but who are not going to go out on a limb for you, but are going to be able to see your vision and make it stronger and help you build that by also gaining at the same time. And then just as a final question, how can your network help you build your business? So it's a win-win-win, in my opinion. Next slide. So here's a little bit of an overview of the effectual process. It's about means assessment, so figuring out what you can do right now and what you want to do right now, where your motivation is or where your need is, figuring out affordable loss. And so at the beginning, there was the slide where it was managerial thinking versus effectual thinking. And it seems like managerial thinking is about goals and achieving goals. Effectual thinking still has goals, but the goals are much more flexible. So they're much broader and they're, not as specific and easily changed, easily adapted. So, the idea is maybe we will weather this storm and we'll figure our way through the coronavirus, but we don't know how. You don't pin it down to a very specific goal. So the means lead to goals, the goals lead to interactions, the interactions lead to network commitment, which gets you to a new place. And when you're at the new place, you can do new things. So then you go back and you review the whole process again. So it's a very iterative process, but for small businesses and for startups, it's how you grow from nothing to a company with 10 customers, a company with 100 customers. It's very incremental and it's building. And during this time of transformation, it's an opportunity to think about how you want to reorganize and reconstruct what you offer. Next slide. This is just another example or another display of how it works, and how, right now, if you look at the orange circle on the right, we're having a change in the environment. The change of environment leads to change of means, leads to change of constraints. So you need to go back and reassess, what are your means, what are your goals, what are the interactions, and how are they going to work together? I just read an article this morning by Tina Tuguson that says we should not go back to the way things were. We need new laws to encourage small businesses and to encourage businesses to radically make changes. And I would say there are a lot of people that would agree with her, including myself. There's a lot of new technology, but unless there's a real source of you must change, people will, it takes a long time. But nevertheless, with the effectuation process, you can also really see what you want to do and look at it as a new way of what is possible, which I really love. And next slide. So in a very basic way to get started, if you are in the boardroom or if you're advising a board, you can start by having a conversation. And next slide. Here are some really simple steps. Introduce effectuation, because this term is not known very widely, even though Sarah Saraswati, she did her research back in 2004, I believe. So it is quite old, but it's not very widely known. So you then assess your means and your network and resources and work together to make decisions and then take action. But you do it from a place of creativity and imagination, as opposed to a very set place of we have to achieve these things. Next slide. Now this, I hope we can play. This is a very famous Danish chef, and it talks about how he builds new businesses. And it's Klaus Meyer for the Danes that are watching this. I don't know if you can press play on this video. If you can, it would be lovely. No? Well, hopefully when these slides are shared, you can press play on this video. But it's talking about how new opportunities are created. This effectuation mentality is more like cooking without a recipe than cooking with a recipe. So you want to have in your toolbox skills, and you do have in your toolbox skills and abilities that enable you to create things. And the real beauty and the real possible unknown opportunity is when you're not following a fixed plan, but you're taking advantage of what you're being faced with at that moment and using your unique abilities to create something new. I believe the final slide. Yes, there's a couple more readings here. One is an Inc. magazine article that goes much more deeply into the research, and then the other one is just a 3-pager on more information about effectuation. Next slide. And then just a little bit about myself. I work with small businesses and startups and do training and curriculum and program development. And I predominantly work through partnerships to support the entrepreneurship ecosystem. My latest partnership is with an initiative at the Danish Technical University called Come Digital, and you can click to hear our podcast series. And of course, I'm always open to collaborations and partnerships. So you're very welcome to reach out to me as well.
Well, Ada, thank you very much indeed.
So thank you very much, Ada. Extremely interesting. Just as a matter of bragging, you can say, during the 13 years that we have had these conferences, many years ago, probably in 2007-8, we were the first who focused on scenario planning, and also using scenario planning for a number of different areas, including budgeting. We had scenario planning. And of course, this has taken off since then. And now scenario planning is a component in more or less everything, including cybersecurity, IT security, and other related issues. So hopefully, effectuation will also gather momentum as time goes by, so that the given goals and the given means correspond to the new goals and the new means by using the 5 principles of effectuation and putting on another layer, which is the means, the goals, the interaction, and the commitment. Did I understand it correctly?
Yes. Yes. That's a great starting.
Would you like to? We have 4 minutes more. Would you like to tell us more about this? This going from the given goals to the new goals, and given means to the new means.
I would be happy to chat about that, but before I do that, Lady Olga, I think you were about to say something. So,
well, my comment really is more general, is that I've worked a lot with both major companies and with small startups, and I was rather impressed by the fact that you can really basically mentor people as to how to grow their system. I've seen too many people floundering around with a great idea. And therefore, I think in a sense, what you were offering was very practical and down to earth. So I hope you operate not just in Denmark, but everywhere.
Yes, thank you. So let me, I think both, okay, so to elaborate more, Kirsty, on what you said, and also to build on what you said, Olga, is that many people are very, you know, you have an idea of something that you want to create, but the actions that it takes to get there are so big that it's very difficult to actually take action, because you see this big, great idea, but everything that has ever been created starts with small decisions and small actions. So, for example, expanding to a new market. Say you have a business and you are established in a local market, but you want to expand to a new market. You can do a big market research study. You can do all sorts of planning activities, or you can call up somebody in that market. You can have a meeting, you can discuss it, you can go to the embassy, you can, you know, you can take small actions that lead to much more meaningful feedback and also meaningful commitment. So that's a way of engaging the network where, for example, the embassy, like say you're a Danish company and you have an established Danish market, the Danish embassy is actually invested in your success abroad. So you can go to the Danish embassy locally or the Danish State Department and say, what do you offer? And that will lead to the next thing. So every single step leads to new means. So after you establish a relationship with the embassy, then you might get an introduction to a customer in a local market. That can lead to your first customer in that market, which can lead to your better understanding of the regulatory environment in that market. So instead of doing all the planning before you get there, you do it as you get there.
Well, I must say, Ada, I just would, before I hand you back to Kirsty, may I just say I wholeheartedly agree. I have another hat. I'm the chairman of the Algeria British Business Council. So my role is taking companies into Algeria. If I have one comment, I hope you would echo it, is when you take good advice and follow it. What I find very irritating is people then take a scrap of the advice, they think they know it, dive into a new field, and then crash into a wall. And I say, listen to what I tell you, be properly guided by people who know what they're doing, and then you will fly.
Yeah, and that is why I truly believe in the patchwork quilt principle, which is engaging and listen, listen, you know, listen to your network. Don't really listen to what they're saying, because they know. I mean, they know what's relevant for your business, and they'll help you make better decisions.
There's one final point, is that for companies who are trying to engage with new markets, they must have a proper budget for it. I've seen too many companies step into a new world and then finding after about 5 or 6 visits to